Hello, evening ghouls and girls. Welcome to the Nightwatch, the Lockjaw Manufacturing Challenge. All right, I don't know how long I can keep that up. I don't know. Anyways, here is the Lockjaw Manufacturing Nightwatch Challenge. I gotta stay awake. It's late. I'm in a graveyard. No, I'm not. I'm gonna do that sometime. But I just have a feeling the locksport culture will get mad at me if I were to try to do something. If I were to try to go into a graveyard at night, they'd be like, it's trespassing. Rule 2, Sandman. So I'm not gonna do it just yet, but I will. I will at some point. Maybe I'll create my own challenge and it's going to be awesome. I'm going to create my own challenge where you have to go pick locks in a graveyard. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this in the long frame because this is live and nobody's going to actually watch this while they're, what's up, Elijah? Nobody's going to actually watch this on their like computer or laptop or something like that. What's up, Dean P? I thought for sure you already did this challenge. No, I haven't done this yet. I mean, I've gone live before at night, but I haven't done it specifically for Lockjaw Manufacturing. There is a difference there. I'm doing it live right here this way in this vertical thing because nobody's watching this from the laptop. They're all going to be watching from your cell phones. If you're watching this from your laptop, please like put it down, get a life. All right, this is a cell phone thing. You'll probably be bored. I don't know, maybe you live in Europe. Why would you be watching right now? Why are you doing what you're doing? Okay, here we go. I'm supposed to like stay in frame the whole time, but I'm not gonna do that. I can't do that. Sorry, I gotta move my hands around. So I got things going on. I might as well do some practice. I need to put out a video for Wednesday, and I'm gonna put out a video on Schleg SC1, and yeah, so we're just going to be practicing on some of these guys. Interesting. I took, Dean P says, I took care of this one and shot him an email. Last patch, they told me to come pick it up from them since I'm only an hour and a half away, but I wasn't able to, so they mailed it. Man, that's rough. I would hate to drive an hour and a half. I probably would for a patch, but, you know, that's me. So the time started at what? I don't know, 12:13, 12:15. We'll call it 12:15. I got to do this for half an hour till 12:45. Hopefully, monsters won't get me. I really, honestly, I sound childish saying this. If I had a book of scary stories, I used to have those scary stories you could tell in the dark, and I just sold it just 2 days ago. No shit. But if I had that, I would probably try to tell some scary stories. It'd be fun. Have you picked a Schleg LFIC? Actually, I have not. Someone just gave me one, and it's like my first one. And it shouldn't be much different other than it has that little detent in the back. So, yeah, I need to try that. Monsters won't get you as long as you don't fall asleep. That's true. That's true. I think the alien that sits outside my window is pretty tired of me sitting on fucking Instagram and YouTube till 4 in the morning. Like, sometimes I'm awake till 5 in the morning because I'm just, like, learning about something or reading or watching documentaries and stuff. And the alien that's waiting to abduct me, he's like, dude, go to sleep already. There we go. There's that one in the back. So if anybody's interested, the Lockjaw Manufacturing company, they're putting out a Locksport challenge. All you got to do is do a live thing for 30 minutes. Make sure you tag them in the title, tag them in the description, tag them on your forehead and a tattoo on your butt. Tag them everywhere and do it for 30 minutes, and they will give you a patch for free. You don't even have to pay for shipping. It's totally cool. What's up, Rune Smith? I really appreciate everything that Lockjaw does for the community, everything that they've done for me. Super great, super great. Super awesome that they are willing to do that. Man, I totally forgot to... Oh, I got to plug in my phone. What's scarier, me picking locks at midnight for the ghouls and ghosts to get me, or my phone dying halfway through a 30-minute challenge? Okay, here we go. Phone is charging. I forgot to put it on Do Not Disturb. I don't know if it can... I can't do it while I'm on my phone. I'm already live. Dang it. Dang it. I don't know how to get out of this. There we go. Hang on. I got to send it to, I think I'll be okay. As long as nobody sends me a text message. Nobody texts me right now. And then my phone shouldn't stop. All right, here we go. We're picking locks. We're picking SE ones. 8 people are watching. 7 of them, I don't know. 8 people are watching. I'm using Multipick. These Multipick in 0.5 millimeter sleigh. These slegs. I don't know anybody. Does anybody collect Ninja Turtles? The Ninja Turtle sewer layer just came out. It's going to be released on September 1st. It's on pre-order on Amazon. So I just pre-ordered that. And the Mutant Module, which is the bad guy vehicle. That's now available at Target, so I just purchased that, and I'll be able to pick that up tomorrow, actually. C8H8. C8. C8. Maybe it means something. I don't know. Can anybody hear me wheezing? Am I supposed to be wheezing while I'm picking locks? Is it that hard? I've been live for 6 minutes and I'm already wheezing. I've been canceled twice. I'm wheezing. I've been fired from my job. I haven't worked in 8 years, but somehow I got fired tonight on live. Let's see here. Bluey, what's up, Bluey? Luke Rune Smith. I love my Multipick. I've got one of their bigger sets waiting for me when I get back to the UK. That's awesome. Australia says hi. Love your work, Sandman. Love you, Andrew Loden. I love Australia. I've never been there. I've always wanted to go. I got some funny stories about how I almost went and joined the Australian military. What time is it for you? For me, it's midnight 20. So... and I'm wheezing. I think I'm wheezing because it's the allergies. I don't know what's going on. Just slaying through some schlegs. You know, these slegs are easier to pick than Quickset. Funny story, they're pronounced schleg and not schlaggy. For some reason, people like to call them schlaggy. And I can understand if you don't know what it's called, you don't say it right. But people will, like, they'll just emphatically just be like, that's schlaggy. No, that sounds like a really cheap German beer. Not to insult my Germans out there. My vape makes me wheeze. If you needed to lockpick somebody's car and steal it, how would I do that? Well, I don't know. I don't give that kind of advice. Yak, just ask them for the keys. 3.1 in the Arvo here. 3.21. 321. It's 321. Is it 3:21 p.m.? I used to call this shillag. Yeah, no, it's called schleg. I only know that because I was a locksmith, and we would talk to the distributors from Schleg, representatives from Schleg. It's schla and leg, like schlong and leg. Did I get canceled from that? I say that every 5 minutes because I say stuff like I'll make a video, I'll make like a review or something, or I'll make like some type of lockpicking video, and I'll be like, I'm gonna have to redo this video because I said some pretty messed up weird shit, so people will not understand. People think that they could just like people think, I don't know what people think. People have an impression of me and they think I don't know. Some people think that I'm some fucking pushover and they could just walk all over me and that they could like boss me around in the comments or like they could like meet me and like intimidate me, which is funny. I'm not a tough guy anymore, but you know, I'm 6'2", 250 pounds, you know, I'm former Marine, fought in 2 foreign wars. So it's funny in the comments, people be like, Sandman, you offended me by doing this. And I'm like, well, go be unoffended, brother. Let's see. Bosnian Bill really knows how to make people want to pick a schlag. Yeah. We used to make, do you know how to hotwire a car per chance? Let's get rid of that guy. How do I get rid of that guy? Let's, that guy's not doing any good. Hide user from this channel. There we go. Bye. Perchance. What a loser. Who asks how to break the law while using the word perchance? The guys that get raped in prison, that's who. That's funny. Anyways, perchance, could you trying to keep this thing PG-13, my friends. I'm not gonna say what's on my mind. Oh my god. Perchance go suck a dick, yak. Let's see, gosh darn yak attack. People always ask how to do illegal stuff on Locksport Lives. I don't know. I don't do a lot of Locksport Lives, so I guess I'll just be always blocking those people. What a tool. He's probably 15, you know, it's probably not like, you know, it's probably 15, you know, it's a school night and he's hanging out on his fucking cell phone. Motherfucker, can you believe that shit? I never had a cell phone when I was in high school. Cell phones weren't even like a thing when I was in high school, early 2000s. Not yet. I didn't have my first cell phone until 2007, 2008, 2007. Yeah. Zoe the cat, hello. Yeah, I didn't have my first laptop and I didn't have my first cell phone until 2007. We didn't have cell phones in high school or middle school or elementary school. That would be something. There we go. I was bummed when I got my first cell phone because then my mom could keep tabs on me. Dude, you want to hear a funny story? I went out with a girl. I met a girl and we went to a hotel. I was in the Marines, all right? Because I couldn't always take a girl back on base. Sometimes you could, sometimes you couldn't. So we get a hotel because we wanted to hold hands. That's it. And so we get a hotel, and in the morning, I have to get back on base. And, you know, you have to have your military ID to get back on base. If you don't have your ID, you're not going to get on base. They'll hold you at the gate guard, and then they'll like write you up. It's called a page 11 for losing your ID, and you get chewed out and all this other stuff, and it just sucks. And they just really make a big deal out of it because you lose your identification. And so I wake up in the morning, I could not find my ID, and I couldn't find my driver's license either. I couldn't find my credit card, my driver's license, or my ID, and the girl didn't take it. So I'm like, oh man, like I don't know how I'm gonna get anywhere without any of this. I don't have a driver's license, I don't have a military ID, like what the hell? And so I did what every normal kid would have to do, and that I came up with this bright idea. I was like, oh, I'm gonna call the DMV from I'm gonna call the DMV from Plainview, Texas, where at the time this was like 15 freaking years ago. So don't call the DMV in Plainview, Texas, because my mom doesn't work there anymore. But I was like, I'm gonna call. I just gave away the story. I'm gonna call the DMV in Plainview, Texas, and ask them if they can give me a temporary ID, a copy of a temporary ID. And so I call the DMV like 4 states away. And I'm like, hey, my name's Jesse. And I was like, I'm living in SoCal. I'm stationed at Camp Pendleton and I lost my driver's license and my military ID. Is there any way you could like fax or email me, you know, a copy of my driver's license so that way I can just drive and not get pulled over and get arrested or whatever? I don't know. And this woman was like, Jesse? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, Jesse Marlar? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, what are you doing at a hotel? And I said, who is this? She goes, this is your mom. And I was like, oh, fuck, really? And so she's like, I don't understand what happened. I said, I'm at a hotel and I lost my damn ID. And she goes, well, did you give your ID to the hotel attendant when you gave them your credit card? And I'm like, oh shit, I forgot. So I go to the hotel, like, you know, main office, and they have my credit card, they have my ID, and for some reason I gave them my military ID. They had everything. And I'm like, oh, I'm such an idiot. So the embarrassing part was I had called the DMV and it was my mom answering the phone, and I had to tell her like, which is like, why are you at a hotel? And I was like, oh, I like the bed. Yeah, it was not good. Yeah, don't do that. Oh man. That was a good story. Let's see here. Anybody got any questions? I got stories for days. Yeah, Bare Bones is made in Australia. Use Bare Bones if you're in Australia. They're made of 301 high-yield stainless steel, boasting 280,000 pounds per square inch of ultimate tensile strength within its raw form, making it the strongest tool steel on the market. If you are in Australia, Bare Bones, or if you're looking for a higher quality tool, then I would look no further than Multipick. I am a little biased. I am a sponsored and I'm a brand ambassador for Multipick. Multipick does make finer tools than Bare Bones. No disrespect to Bare Bones, they make great tools, but Multipick is even better. I would use Multipick based out of Bonn, Germany, and they use what's probably closer to a 400 series stainless steel, which is very comparable to the 301 high yield stainless steel, except you get a little bit more feedback, not as stiff. And that's what I'm using right now to pick this here lock that is kicking my butt. And yeah, check out any of my YouTube videos. Check out the video description. You'll see a link in the YouTube channel that goes to Multipick, and you'll see a discount, 10% discount. I think it's like Sand YT, I don't know, something 10%. It's in there. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what it says. Let's see, maybe I should get last half hour of work done first. I'm live with Sandman now, so work and wait. Yeah, work and wait. Yeah, let's see here. Let's see, yeah. Oh, yeah. Germany is known to have different steel. Covert Instruments was bendy. I haven't had any problems with Covert Instruments, but they're in my top 5, but they're not in my top 3. My top 3 are going to be Multipick, Jimy Longs, and Moki. I'd put those 3 over my Covert Instruments, but Covert Instruments is in my top 5. Let's see, do I have any other stories? I have a lot of stories that are just not appropriate. I did 3 combat deployments, my friend. You know what's weird? So I did three deployments, 2 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, but my deployment to Afghanistan is a private security contractor. So you're not allowed, some people are like, oh, you can't call it a deployment. Well, it was a deployment. I deployed as a contractor for the Department of Defense instead of an employee for the Department of Defense. And if you look up the language that the Department of Defense uses for contractors, they use the same language. They'll still say deployment. But some veterans who didn't do shit will get angry at you and be like, it's not a deployment. Well, what do you call it then? You know? So, but, you know, anyways, I did 2 tours in Iraq as a Marine artilleryman. Then I got out, became a private contractor just for a short 6 months, and went to Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan for 2 months because the workup, just the training for it, was 4 months. So it's a deployment, motherfucker. And, you know, I fought in 2 foreign war zones, 2 foreign wars, excuse me. 2 foreign wars. I was in Fallujah in 06. I was in Al-Qaeda in 07. Those are both in Iraq. And then in Afghanistan, I was at Combat Outpost Honaker Miracle in support of the 4th Infantry Division from Fort Carson, Colorado. Combat Outpost Honaker Miracle in Kunar Province, just east of Jalalabad. And we were like, I don't know, a couple clicks from the Pakistani border. These quick sets are, I told you. So here's where we're going to switch it up. We're going to go to the flat hook. And we can put tension at the bottom. See what happens when Sandman starts telling war stories. I don't talk about it that much because what is there to talk about? I was artillery, but I was support for artillery. I was counter battery radar operator for field artillery. So my job was to track the incoming rocket and mortar fire for field artillery. So when people would shoot at us, I would use radar capabilities and ANTPQ 36 radar to track the incoming rocket and mortar fire from the enemy. I'd get a 13-digit grid coordinate, which is their point of origin, and I'd give that point of origin to fire direction control. They'd make sure there were no friendlies in the area, and then they would tell the gun bunnies, the artillery battery, where to shoot, like their azimuth, artillery guys can't see 18 kilometers. Everybody thinks those guys are out there getting all the kills. They're not. It's a whole well-oiled machine. Those guys don't know where to shoot until someone tells them where to shoot. And that was me telling them where to shoot. I wasn't fire direction control, but I was counter battery radar. So once they shoot at us, the bad guys, I'd say, yep, they're over here, and that's where they shoot. So I did that for 2 deployments in the Marines in Iraq, total of 13 months, and then I did a quick deployment in Afghanistan, doing damn near the same thing. I was working as a CRAM, counter rocket artillery mortar, CRAM operator. So, but we just used radars, same thing. We used a Halo radar and a Giraffe 2 radar, Halo 2 radar, all these different radars to track incoming. Why are these kicking my butt? Because I'm telling war stories. No, I didn't work for Blackwater. Actually, I was hired by the company formerly known as Blackwater. Blackwater was rebranded as XE, and then it was rebranded from XE to Academy, and it was Academy with an I. And so when I applied for Academy, formerly known as Blackwater, in 2015, I got the job position, and they basically said, we've accepted your application. We are going to give you a job offer, and then we will buy your plane tickets, and you will fly out to Moyock, North Carolina, for your evaluation, your physical fitness test. And it was not a PSD, a physical security detail. It was a static security detail, so an SSD. So physical security details by that time in 2015 required you to have a minimum of like special forces or advanced infantrymen or advanced experience, like multiple deployments, team leader type stuff. Those were the physical security details. So those guys were going outside the wire and, you know, doing executive protection details. Static security details was what I had applied for, which could be anybody that was in a combat MOS or a relative field. So you could have been law enforcement or whatever. And so I was in a combat MOS, having been in counter battery radar, operator for field artillery, because I was an artilleryman, even though I was not on the gun line. I was an artilleryman. I had the 0842 MOS designator. So I was 0800 is artillery. So because I was in a combat MOS, I qualified for static security detail. And because I went through police academy in 2011, graduated, but never became a commissioned officer. And because I was a licensed bodyguard for the state of Texas, I qualified for the static security detail. So they gave me plane tickets, and I had a ship date for 2 weeks. And then I was training, and I was running laps around a racetrack here in Austin, and I slipped on some gravel, and I ruptured my left hamstring. I mean, full on rupture, like up near the ass portion. And it, like, the most painful thing I ever felt in my life was having to sit in my Mustang on a ruptured fucking hamstring and try to drive my ass back home, and then climb up 3 flights of stairs so I could finally lay in bed. That was the most pain I've ever had in my entire life, hands down. I mean, I've done some gnarly stuff. I once walked 10 kilometers, and then 3 days later, I walked another 15 kilometers on a compound fracture, a compound broken leg on my fib tib. That was in the Marines. That was not as painful as tearing my hamstring. So anyways, it took 3 months for that to heal, just to where I could walk without a cane. And then by that point, my secret security clearance actually expired. Hey, look, I got one. Holy crap. My secret security clearance, which I had gotten to be in a combat MOS in the Marines, was activated in 2005 when I was in the Marines. The reason why these companies are willing to hire you is because you have an active security clearance, because otherwise the security clearance is like hundreds of thousands of dollars for the investigation and for the clearance. you know, to get cleared. So they actively try to find guys that are veterans because then they don't have to pay. It's cheaper to renew a secret level security clearance than it is to activate one, a new one. So I had an active security clearance because this was the security clearance that I had, secret level security clearance, was good for 10 years. And it's like the basic, the most bottom level of security clearance. And so they have, I think, yeah, it's secret, I think. And so, because you had to have a secret level security clearance to work as a radar operator. So, so in 2015, it was going to expire. And it was going to expire sometime like either October or November of 2015 because I had gotten it like November of 2005 when I had gotten to the fleet as I was preparing to go to Iraq for 2006 deployment. So while I was recovering from a torn hamstring, my secret security clearance expired, and I was still walking with a cane for like 6 months total. So I basically just had to call Academy, a company formerly known as Blackwater, and say, hey, I can't take the job. And so it took like a full year to recover physically. And I remember calling them like 3 months after I called them when I was injured. I was like, hey, I can't make the ship date to come out to train. And they're like, okay, no problem. Thank you for letting us know. We'll cancel your plane ticket. I said, great. I called them 3 months later to say, hey, man, just letting you know, like, I'm not getting any better. This is a full-on tear. And my security clearance is expired, so I'm just going to bow out. And they were like, oh, well, we thought you just fell off the face of the planet. Like, you didn't call us. I'm like, no, I called you. I emailed and called you guys. And they go, oh, well, nobody told us. So they basically, like, had me written off as somebody that was a no-call, no-show, even though I'd called them, because the recruiter that I'd been talking to didn't have good communication skills with his staff, and he sure as hell didn't put anything in his computer. So anyways, I'm sure I was like blacklisted or something from being able to apply again in the future, but it didn't matter because my security clearance was expired. So that's my Blackwater story. And it wasn't the same company. Academy wasn't the same company as Blackwater. Eric Prince didn't own it anymore, as far as I know. And so, you know, I'm not trying to say that, oh, I almost worked for Blackwater back in the day. No, man, I would have been a pogue of pogues, and I would have been a security gate, you know, guard detail bullshit, you know, soup sandwich shit, and that's fine. But the pay would have been good. Pay would have been real good. I don't remember what it was going to be. It was over 100,000 for sure. I think it was 150,000. I was making 140,000 when I was a contractor in Afghanistan in 2012. And but that was just for the 2 months I was CONUS. When I was stateside, I was making 80,000 or some shit. Okay, time to read some questions here. Sure seems like it would be fun to work the artillery. I think so. I don't know. I was never on the gun line. I never got along with the guys that were artillery. They always thought that they were like superior to everybody when they never did anything that I didn't do. You know, like I saved more lives. I saved thousands of lives on a daily basis, tracking incoming rocket and mortar fire. And we were also a part of, you know, operations that eliminated enemy combatants off of the battlefield through those operations. And not everybody on the gun line can say that they've done both. Guys on the gun line can pull string, go boom, and then they're a part of, receiving, confirmed kills from, eliminating, enemy off the battlefield, but they can't say that they were necessarily saving lives at the same time. So I definitely feel like I had the opportunity to do more by doing radar for artillery. If I ever had to do it again, though, I should have been infantry, in my opinion, because I'm just that kind of guy mentally. You meet the infantry guys and the Marines, a lot of them are just pieces of shit. Like, they're all alcoholics and drug addicts. And when you tell them, like, yeah, man, I should have joined infantry, they're like, oh, you wouldn't have been able to cut it. And it's like, well, you're kind of a piece of shit. I don't know how you're making it on a daily basis. I think I would have been fine. So, but there's definitely a lot of elitism in the infantry guys when they meet the pogues, the personnel other than grunts. Okay, so would you be in contact with the FOs? We didn't have Fort observers in the Marines. Fort observers went through Fort Sill, Oklahoma, just like me and all the other artillery guys. And then when they got there, they found out that Marine Corps was getting rid of Fort observers. And they were like, you guys are no longer Fort observers. You're not going to school for FO. You're going to be Anglico. And Anglico was like awesome. Anglico was like the special forces of the fucking Marine Corps / naval, like special forces of the sea. These guys could call in like air to ground, freaking bombs and missiles and everything. Like they were They were like JTACs from the Air Force, Joint Tactical. Blah, blah, I don't know what JTAC means, man. I used to work alongside them, and I don't even know what the fucking acronym means. I'm sorry. A JTAC with the Air Force would basically tell airplanes where to shoot because they don't know what's happening on the ground. They're the liaison between the ground forces and the air forces, and those guys are pretty awesome. And the Anglico guys are the same thing, in my opinion, but it's like a naval version of it. And so those guys that signed up to be a forward observer ended up going and getting amazing training, and they were learning everything from CQB and door kicking to, because you got to be able to kick down a door to be able to get up on top of the rooftop to be able to call in a fucking airstrike, all kinds of crazy stuff. Like these guys went through all the cool guy schools. So I never got to work with them. I got to work with fire direction controlmen. Fire direction controlmen used what's called FA-TEDs, which was a type of radar system that was a communication system that allowed multiple joint units to communicate with each other on the battlefield in real time. So when I gave the fire direction controlmen, the FDC 0844s, as they were, that's their MOS. When I gave them the point of origin of the enemy, they would basically look on the FA-TEDs and they'd look on their map and make sure there were no friendlies in the area. And they'd say, okay, and they'd call up the artillery bunnies and they'd say, hey, fire on this position for effect. And they would literally do a carpet bombing run. So a carpet bombing is, from my understanding, from my perspective as a radar operator, was where they would lay freaking rounds down range, like spaced apart, like 8 rounds, like deuce, 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 like 8 of them. And it was like a football field length worth of just death and destruction. So that was cool. We did that on a daily basis. Like my team on my first deployment, there was 8 of us and we had 3 shifts, and we ran 24-hour operations, and we tracked over 6,000 indirect enemy fire missions over 6 months. And 60% of that 6,000, so a little over, somewhere around 3,500 of those call for fire missions were from me on my shift between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. And I worked the 2 to 8 a.m., 2 to 10 a.m. shift 7 days a week, never had a day off for 7 months on my first deployment. And so we had a lot of action, a lot of action. So that was cool. It was cool to be a part of. My second deployment was lame as hell, and it was really slow. There wasn't a lot going on in my second deployment. We were in support of the Army, and the Army didn't do shit. All right, let's read some questions. It sure seems like it would be fun. Let's see, I've heard that the CRAM systems weren't that great. Is that accurate? No, our CRAM was perfect. Our CRAM was great. So here's the deal. CRAM is a buildup of multiple operating systems. So CRAM, I went to school for CRAM under Northrop Grumman. So when I was a contractor, I was a contractor for JBM. JBM was Johnson Baxter Management. JBM was a subcontractor under Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman was the primary contract holder for the Department of Defense. There were rumors that Northrop Grumman was actually under the CIA, but I don't know why the CIA would need to have artillery contracts underneath them. But that was a rumor. Doesn't matter. The CIA somehow is in line with the Department of Defense. I don't know how it all works. But to my knowledge, all the paperwork that I saw and my ID and all that stuff just said, Department of Defense contractor. So JBM was the company, and they were subcontracted under Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman had the contract. I went to school in Alabama for CRAM, which means I had to learn like 7 different radar systems inside of 3 months. So instead of going to one school for one radar system like I did in the Marines, I had to go to 7 different schools to learn 6, it was either 6 or 7 different radar systems. But I walked out of there with like 14 different certificates because they have a whole lot of different things that coincide with the radar systems. I bring this up because when you get to Afghanistan or wherever you deploy, we had guys that were going to other places other than Afghanistan that were in those training classes. Some guys were like going to Syria or some shit. And some guys were actually going to Iraq even. And so you don't know what radar system you're going to be put on. So you have all these certifications and all this training, and I had all this previous military training with radar systems. So then you deploy. And then so I went to Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, and you're there for a couple weeks until they find you a home. And then I shipped out to Jalalabad, and I was there for a couple days. And then from Jalalabad, I went to Kunar province. I went to Combat Outpost Hanukkah Miracle. I don't remember if Jalalabad was in Kunar province, but Combat Outpost Hanukkah Miracle was east of Jalalabad. So there's a lot of hopping around you go to. And then when you get there, you're like, oh, you have Halo radars. Cool, no problem. I know how to use that. So so that's what it is. So if you're saying that, if you're asking me the CRAM systems weren't that great, that's not true. That's like saying the Army's not great, is it? Well, the Army has a lot of different jobs and different specialities. So but anyways, you know, you just have to kind of nitpick. You can say certain radar systems are not that great. The problem wasn't the problem wasn't CRAM, and the problem wasn't our radar. The problem was my predecessors lied to the client. The client is the Army. So at this base, Combat Outpost Hanukkah Miracle, I didn't know I would just start telling war stories forever. My God, I'm so sorry. But at the base, Combat Outpost Hanukkah Miracle, we had a battle captain, and we had like a sergeant major, because he's over the enlisted people, and the battle captain was in charge of everybody else. And but anyways, that's called the client. And so your job as a contractor is to serve the client, and the client is the Army. And even though I'm doing a normal Army type job, which would have been a 13 Romeo, or a Marine Corps job, which is a 0842, which is a counter battery radar operator, as a contractor, my client is the Army. And my predecessors lied to the client and said, yeah, these radars that we're emplacing here in the Pesh River Valley, which was just like 1 or 2 clicks away from the Korengal Valley, they're like, yeah, these radars are going to track everything. And I had been trained on radar emplacement theory and applications. So I knew that our radars were in the wrong place. We had this, I can't go into too much detail because it requires a secret security clearance, but basically some radars will have what's called a fatal funnel, which is a dead spot in the radar and its ability to see incoming rocket and mortar fire. And the whole fucking value was basically a fatal funnel, without going into details of the radar and getting in trouble, or which radar it was. So we had a giant fatal funnel, and the enemy knew that, and they would just lob their rockets and mortars at a really high angle and drop them into our valley, and they would just hit us every single day. I was in an 8-hour long firefights like every other day. We lost so many people. We lost like, I know we lost a lot of U.S. troops, but I think it was a lower number, like, you know, somewhere between 4 and 8. But we lost a total of like 20, 25 personnel total, but that's including the Afghan National Army out of 100. So we had like almost nearly a 25% attrition rate at Combat Outpost Hanukkah Miracle in 2012. That's how I remember it. I remember the Afghan National Army were the brunt of those, the deceased guys. So, what I'm trying to get at is we were in these super long firefights every day. I wasn't involved in the firefights other than doing my job as a counter battery, you know, as counter rocket artillery mortar. I wasn't there to, like, when we were getting shot at, you're not there to like go to a berm or a watchtower and to engage with the enemy. You're there to do your job. And my job was to track the rounds coming in, so that way the mortarmen and the artillery that were there at that combat outpost could respond effectively. And most of the time, all the time, they pretty much couldn't, because I couldn't track where the point of origin was, because everything being fired at us was in the fatal funnel. So instead, what they did was, we had a badass JTAC dude that would call in airstrikes. And so we had like 16 video feeds in the Battle Command Center. So we had like 16 TVs put up on the walls from all these different cameras, raid cameras that were put up, different types of radars. And he also had direct feed from the A-10 Warthogs. And so he would call in these enemy positions, because he would find them on the raid camera, or from drones actually. And then he'd call in an A-10 Warthog strike, and those things would light up the fucking skies. And I was outside, and you'd hear these A-10 Warthogs flying flying like a couple 100 feet above your head, lighting up some enemy that you couldn't see because there was like a fucking fog or a mist in the Pesh River Valley. It was gnarly, dude. I can go on for days about these war stories. I'm so sorry. I just went off on a tangent. Someone probably asked me, how do you spell USMC? And I just told my whole life story. I'm so sorry. Let's see here. More. They are really interesting. As in their vertical range is like 60 degrees, 90 degrees. I can't go into details about that. That's what makes it something you can't talk about. Let me let me go off on a tangent about that. Anybody that says that like, like I did this or did that, but I can't talk about it, you could just guarantee they're full of shit. Because if there was something you couldn't talk about, you never would have brought it up in the first place. However, in my job, which was to manage radars for the military, there were certain parameters and limitations that the radars had that was considered classified information, therefore is not privy to the general public because they didn't want the enemy to know those limitations, which our enemy always did, because they're not idiots and they're trained on it, from someone, usually by the Chinese or the Russians or somebody's training them on this shit. And so I can't tell you the limitations of my radar, but I can tell you where I deployed, when I deployed, why I deployed, in support of who. I can tell you where all the special forces guys were at. They were all at FOB fucking Joyce or Combat Up, they call it Joyce, which was like 2 clicks from us. Like it wasn't a secret where the Navy SEALs were. It wasn't a secret where the fucking special forces guys were. They were like, 35 fucking spec ops guys or more, at fucking Joyce that was in support of Combat Outpost Hanukkah Miracle and all of the combat operations in that AO, the area of operation. We just can't tell you very specifics about like you can't talk about certain missions, I guess, but I didn't do missions. I mean, I don't know. I tracked fucking incoming rounds. I just can't tell you the differences of my, I just can't talk about like the radar stuff. That's all. Man, I was talking to a guy who tried to tell me he was a CIA, and I was like, cool, man. And I was like, did you deploy? He's like, yeah. He goes, I deployed, around the same time that you deployed. I was like, oh, really? You went to Iraq? I was like, where'd you go? He goes, oh, I can't talk about it. I was like, what do you mean you can't talk about it? You can't tell me where you're at? He goes, no, I can't talk about it. And I was like, you could lie to me. You could also tell me like, oh, I was operating in, the Western theater of Iraq, in the circle of death between Ramadi, Fallujah, and, what was it? It was Ramadi, Fallujah, and one other. I can't remember the other portion of that triangle. I was in Fallujah. So, but I mean, you could tell me your area of operation without giving up like specific things. Plus, this was like 15 years ago, and we're both sitting in my truck, and you could just tell me this. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell me where you were. You don't have to tell me what you did. So, anyways, I was like, oh, this guy's completely full of shit. And then I was like, I was asking him, what is your name? And he told me his nickname. And I was like, that sounds funny. I was like, it reminds me of Jumbo. And he goes, what's that? And I said, Jumbo. And he goes, I don't know what you're saying. I said, Jumbo. And he goes like, I don't know what you're saying. I was like, dude, that's what the Ugandans used to say in Iraq. And he looked at me weird. And I was like, don't tell me you've never met a Ugandan in Iraq. And he hadn't. That's how I knew he was full of shit. Every single military installation in the early 2000s, while I was there from 2006, 2007, he was supposedly was there at the same time. Every single one of those installations had Ugandans manning the gates. Their static security detail were primarily Ugandan forces. The big deal about the Ugandan forces was just a few years prior to them supporting U.S. personnel in the operation, against fucking terrorism, they had just committed a mass genocide and fucking killed over 200,000 of their own fucking people. So we were all told, don't fuck with the Ugandans. But they were also like the nicest people you'd ever meet on earth. And they didn't speak any fucking English. But what would happen is they were not given vehicles to go to the chow hall. So you'd see like 20 or 30 of these Ugandans, these Ugandan nationals, walking to the chow hall while you drove by in your Humvee. And it was tradition as a Marine or a Army or, soldier or sailor or airman that when you drove by a pack of Ugandans, you would yell, Jumbo, which is hello in Ugandan. And they would all get so excited and they would all raise their hand, all 30 of them. They go, Jumbo. And they were just the most jovial, fun people in the world. And on Sundays, they would have like an open outside prayer and they would sing a cappella because they didn't have any instruments. They would sing and they had like their own choir and they were the most amazing singers. Like they would sing Christian music and they had their own Christian tunes and shit. So nobody that I ever knew that has ever deployed to Iraq around that time has never not had a story about the Ugandans. They're ubiquitous, I think is the key word, to Iraq and the Iraq deployment experience. Now, if you went to Baghdad or if you went, up near Syria, maybe you're not running into Ugandans, whatever. But if you were in the triangle of death between Ramadi and Fallujah and whatever the other fucking place was that I forget off the top of my damn head, there were Ugandans everywhere. So you would know. And this guy did not even know anything about the Ugandans, and he couldn't talk about it and all this other bullshit. So guess what? I don't talk to him anymore. Fuck that guy. Mountain Mick, how are you? Sorry, guys, I'm telling war stories in the middle of the night. And these quick set locks are kicking my butt. To be fair, I'm a little out of practice, and quick set locks like to be picked counterclockwise. I don't know why. They just do. I have passed my 30-minute time frame. I'm going to get off here in a couple minutes. My wife is trying to sleep. She has to get up early, and she's probably tired of hearing me tell stupid stories that nobody wants to hear. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, and I will get off. And I had no idea this would turn into Jesse telling Sandman telling military stories. Excellent, Sandman. Thanks for the hello. Not here to interrupt or steal your thunder. No, man, there's no thunder to steal. I was nobody special, and I did nothing important. I am a third-generation war veteran, though I can say that. My father was an F-4 crew chief, an F-4 Phantom fighter jet crew chief. During the Vietnam War, he was stationed in Thailand in support of the Vietnam conflict because the pilots would fly out of Korat, Thailand. So he is actually a Vietnam veteran, even though he never stepped foot in Vietnam, because he was in support of the war, and that's just where the pilots flew out of. So that's cool. And then both my grandfathers served in World War II. They didn't do anything tactical. They were all just like, support. You get a lot of people telling war stories. People don't realize that 85%, at least in the Marine Corps, 85% of the Marine Corps is support of the 15% that are our combat MOS. And of that combat MOS, 5 or 10% are the infantry. And of that 5 and 10% that are the infantry, only half ever go to combat during war. Like, we're not at war right now. We don't have a bunch of infantry guys all over the world going to war. We have some guys in Iraq, and we have some guys in Syria, and I'm sure we have some guys in Ukraine, but as a whole, there's not a lot of combat veterans walking around. But when I was in, 80% of the Marine Corps had deployed to a war zone. Now, 50% of the infantry had been deployed to Iraq, and the other 50% were on MEUs, Marine Expeditionary Units, or whatever, or hadn't deployed or waiting to deploy. And the 50% that did deploy, only 50% of them actually saw combat. So we're talking about 5% of all of the combat MOSs were infantrymen that were actually deployed to a combat zone, and half of them actually saw combat, because some guys would deploy to a combat zone, and there was no fighting in the winter, and some guys would just got lucky. What I'm trying to say is there's like less than 2.5% chance that the person you're talking to actually saw combat. So there's so many people that are full of shit, and I run into all of them. I'm full of shit too, man. I never had to go out and leave the wire to go kill people or do anything fucked up like that, and I'm fortunate for that. I left the wire plenty, trust me, but I was in support of the real war fighters. I did like 70 convoys, but they were just from fob to fob to change batteries for radar systems. And I did one convoy as a kind of like a physical security detail, taking some contractors to go work on some radars. For whatever reason, they just wanted to take Marine radar operators with them to support them, because then we could help them with the radars when we got there. And that's its own story. in and of itself, because we almost couldn't make it back. Almost couldn't make it back. We didn't take our NVGs, and we got stuck out there in the middle of the night. Recon Bubba's had to come pick us up and bring us back. It was pretty embarrassing. Let's see. My family, all Marines, or except me, got a yayo charge at 17, and they wouldn't let me volunteer. As the infantry wins battles, but logistics wins wars. It's true, infantry wins battles, but artillery is the king of battle, my friend. Infantry guys are amazing, but we soften up the enemy with artillery and airstrikes. And then once we've done that, then the infantry guys go in and they move more surgically, to try to take out the smaller targets, as I understand it. Oh, and Dad was a missile system analyst for Minutemen program in Air Force. My dad was in transportation in the Army in Somalia. Crazy. Somalia would be crazy. No thanks. I tell all these crazy war stories like I'm a tough guy. I'm not a tough guy. If I was a tough guy, I would have done tough guy things. I didn't do tough guy things. I was a pogue. And, I had my cool pogue experience. I had my combat experience. I didn't get a combat badge, a combat action ribbon, because they changed the rules from 2005 to 2011. Anybody that was involved with artillery did not qualify for combat action ribbons. However, all of my predecessors that had deployed just 1 year prior to me all received combat action ribbons for counter battery radar operations and elimination of enemy threats on the battlefield in real time through those counter battery missions. And so I didn't qualify for a combat action ribbon, which is fine. It's no big deal. I know what I did, but it just sucks because sometimes, when you're applying for benefits with the VA, when you're applying for benefits with veterans programs, and you're fucked up and you have PTSD and you went through 45 jobs in 8 years, because you're a PTSD and you're homeless and all this other shit. They say, well, show us what awards you have. And it's like, well, I don't have a combat action ribbon. Well, if you weren't in combat, how do you have PTSD? Well, I was in combat. I've been shot at 1,000 fucking times because that was my job. My job was to get shot at and track where the shooting came from so we could fire back and eliminate them. And then they say, well, why don't you have a combat action ribbon? I say, well, I don't know. Why don't you ask Congress? So anyways, I'm that guy now. I'm 41 years old and I'm that guy now. I'm that guy. I'm like, hey, you weren't there, man. Guys, let's end this. This is shite. Oh man, I can't believe I have to leave this up for everybody here. But it's all true, folks. I got the pictures, I got the t-shirt, and I got the tattoos and the scars to prove it. Let me know in the comments down below. Did you make it from beginning to end? I'm so sorry if you had to sit through all this nonsense. If you like hearing war stories, hit me up. I would be happy to tell you some more. If not, this is the first time in 2 years I've ever told a war story on YouTube. This is the first time in 2 years. I'm not a fan of it. It's not something I'm going to make a habit of. But, if you ask me a question, I'll fucking tell you the answer. I'm going to let it go, folks. I'll let you guys, so guys, listen, this whole thing is just, this is just the support Lockjaw Manufacturing. Lockjaw Manufacturing is really great distributor of locksport, locksmith related goods. They sell soft goods, they sell swag, they sell the pinning mats, all kinds of stuff. They're really great guys. They're really trying to make a name for themselves, like any businesses, but they're doing it to support locksport and locksmiths. They're not trying to make a buck. They're trying to grow the community. They know that the locksport guys will slowly transition into locksmithing, and they know that the locksmithing guys don't exactly have the best tools at their disposal. But thanks to Locksport, we are slowly making more awareness for that. So I would really like to implore you guys that, you don't have to come out and make a live video and put Lockjaw Manufacturing, MFG, in the tag, in the title and the description. At the very least, go check out their website. Go check out some of their stuff. There's something for everybody. They have hats, they have beanies, they have shirts, they have hard goods, they have soft goods, and now they have the challenge patch. Thank you, Lockjaw Manufacturing, for putting on this fun little challenge. I used the entire time to pick a couple locks here. I didn't pick them all. And I pretty much just talked a bunch of bullshit. I appreciate everybody listening to me yak about the war, and I hope I never have to go through that again. It was dumb. It's embarrassing. C8HH and Elijah Carney and Dean P, you guys were here from the beginning. Thank you so much. I'm going to send you a package with my love in it. I don't know what that means. That sounded gross. It sounded more romantic in my head. I'm just going to say thank you. How about that? I'm not going to send you guys a package with my love in it. That's so weird. How do you put your love into a package? Let me know in the comments down below. How do you put love into a package? I want to know. All right, folks, if I haven't been canceled yet, I'll get canceled next time. Catch you guys later.